Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Verse 51. The wise endowed with equanimity of intellect abandon attachment to the fruits of actions, which bind one to the cycle of life and death. By working in such consciousness, they attain the state beyond all suffering. Bhagavad Gita 2.52. When your intellect crosses the quagmire of delusion, you will then acquire indifference to what has been heard and what is yet to be heard, about enjoyments in this world and the next. 2.53. When your intellect ceases to be allured by the fruitive sections of the Vedas and remains steadfast in divine consciousness, you will then attain the state of perfect yoga. 2.54. Arjuna said, O Keshava, what is the disposition of one who is situated in divine consciousness? How does an enlightened person talk? How does he sit? How does he walk? 2.55. The Supreme Lord said, O Partha, when one discards all selfish desires and cravings of the senses that torment the mind, and becomes satisfied in the realization of the self, such a person is said to be transcendentally situated. 2.56. One whose mind remains undisturbed amidst misery, who does not crave for pleasure, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady wisdom. 2.57. One who remains unattached under all conditions and is neither delighted by good fortune nor dejected by tribulation, he is a sage with perfect knowledge. 2.58. One who is able to withdraw the senses from their objects, just as a tortoise withdraws its limbs into its shell, is established in divine wisdom. One who is able to withdraw the senses from their objects, just as a tortoise withdraws its limbs into its shell, is established in divine wisdom. Aspirants may restrain the senses from their objects of enjoyment, but the taste for the sense objects remains. However, even this taste ceases for those who realize the Supreme. The senses are so strong and turbulent, O son of Kunti, that they can forcibly carry away the mind even of a person endowed with discrimination who practices self-control. They are established in perfect knowledge who subdue their senses and keep their minds ever absorbed in me. While contemplating on the objects of the senses, one develops attachment to them. Attachment leads to desire, and from desire arises anger. Anger leads to clouding of judgment, which results in bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, the intellect gets destroyed, and when the intellect is destroyed, one is ruined. While contemplating on the objects of the senses, one develops attachment to them. Attachment leads to desire, and from desire arises anger. Anger leads to clouding of judgment, which results in bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, the intellect gets destroyed, and when the intellect is destroyed, one is ruined. 2.64. But one who controls the mind and is free from attachment and aversion, even while using the objects of the senses, attains the grace of God. But one who controls the mind and is free from attachment and aversion, even while using the objects of the senses, attains the grace of God. By divine grace comes the peace in which all sorrows end, and the intellect of such a person of tranquil mind soon becomes firmly established in God. 2.66. But an undisciplined person who has not controlled the mind and senses can neither have a resolute intellect nor steady contemplation on God. For one who never unites the mind with God, there is no peace. And how can one who lacks peace be happy? 2.67. Just as a strong wind sweeps a boat off its chartered course on the water, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can lead the intellect astray. 2.68. Therefore, one who has restrained the senses from their objects, O mighty armed Arjuna, is firmly established in transcendental knowledge. 2.69. What all beings consider as day is the night of ignorance for the wise, and what all creatures see as night is the day for the introspective sage. 2.70. Just as the ocean remains undisturbed by the incessant flow of waters from rivers merging into it, likewise the sage who is unmoved despite the flow of desirable objects all around him attains peace, and not the person who strives to satisfy desires. 2.71. That person who gives up all material desires and lives free from a sense of greed, proprietorship, and egoism attains perfect peace. 2.72. O Partha, such is the state of an enlightened soul, that having attained it, one is never again deluded. Being established in this consciousness even at the hour of death, one is liberated from the cycle of life and death and reaches the supreme abode of God. What does the Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 talk about? The Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 is entitled Sankhya Yoga, or Transcendental Knowledge. It is one of the most important and foundational chapters in the Gita. Here's a summary of its key themes and teachings. Context. At the end of chapter 1, Arjuna is overwhelmed with sorrow and confusion about fighting the war against his own relatives, teachers, and friends. In chapter 2, Lord Krishna begins his teachings. Key themes of chapter 2. Number 1. The immortality of the soul, Atman. Krishna explains that the soul is eternal, indestructible, and unborn. The body dies, but the soul never does. It transmigrates from one body to another, just like changing clothes. Weapons cannot cut it, fire cannot burn it, water cannot wet it, and wind cannot dry it. Number 2. Duties and Dharma. Krishna reminds Arjuna of his Kshatriya Dharma, of his Kshatriya duty to fight for justice. Not doing his duty would be dishonor and sin. Number 3. Karma Yoga, path of selfless action. Perform your duty without attachment to results. You have a right to perform your duty, but not to the fruits of action. This is the essence of Karma Yoga, action without selfish desire. Number 4. Equanimity and balance. Krishna teaches stoic balance, to remain steady in success and failure, gain and loss, pleasure and pain. This mental stability is called Sthita Prajna, the state of a spiritually realized person. Number 5. Beginning of Bhakti and Jnana. Though the chapter is mostly philosophical and focused on knowledge, jnana, and action, karma, the roots of devotion, bhakti, are also planted here. Famous verses from chapter 2, 2.13, 2.13. Just as the body passes through childhood, youth, and old age, the soul passes to another body. 2.47. Do your duty, but don't be attached to the outcome. 2.70. One who is unmoved by desires, like an ocean unmoved by rivers, flowing into it, attains peace.